and such, immeasurable amount of followers, she can potentially single-handedly swing voters because of just the amount of followers that she potentially can influence.
Because a new poll conducted by Redfield and Wilton Strategies found that 18% of voters say they're significantly more likely to vote for a candidate endorsed by Taylor Swift. It's reported the 2024 presidential election will see 8 million new voters in the U.S. electorate and a total of 41 million Gen Z voters, many of whom are obviously influenced by celebrities and social media. And seeing as T Swift has a whopping 94.9 million followers on X alone, compared to Trump's inactive account with 87 million, and Biden's POTUS account with a measly 33 million, half of which are probably bots, let's be honest, I'd say, yeah, that's probably reason for concern. Especially when you take into account the fact that George Soros and the Carlyle Group own Taylor Swift and her music.
Taylor Swift seems to have an absolutely hysterical effect on people. Like, even Taylor Lautner, famous in his own right, is doing backflips at the mere sight of watching her in a movie theater, watching one of her concerts in a movie theater. And I don't know about you guys, I was looking at the end of last year, everyone's Spotify Wrapped, and Taylor Swift was at the top of pretty much every single person I followed, or in the top 5. And my girlfriend likes Taylor Swift as well, and we're going to be seeing some of my girlfriend talking about Taylor Swift later in this video. Don't worry if you want to defend Taylor Swift in the comments, because my girlfriend Hollie will be pushing back against some of the things I've been saying in this video. But today what I wanted to talk about was just Taylor Swift in terms of politics, consumer capitalism, and art, because personally, like, I'm not a big fan of Taylor Swift. I like her songs with Justin Vernon because I'm a big fan of Bon Iver. And just a funny anecdote from today, my girlfriend was just working at her desk and some music was playing and she said, "It's your favorite." And I'm like, "Who is it?" And it was Taylor Swift. Because apart from a few songs, her music just like goes over my head in terms of it's just one of those singers who is talented and sings well, but to me, I just can't really vibe with it at all. And that's a lot of chart music in my opinion. But Taylor Swift reminds me of two things. She reminds me of Ed Sheeran, which apparently they went out. And she reminds me of Marvel movies. All three of these things have a mass global appeal. And Taylor Swift is probably one of the most famous artists of all time, thanks to things like globalization and social media. You could even argue she's bigger at the moment than people like Elvis, maybe even Michael Jackson, based on how many people listen to her. And in my opinion, it's not based on merit. And that might be a spicy take to some people, but I don't think she's as talented as like Beyonce, Madonna, Elvis, Michael Jackson, in terms of like these absolute superstars. So in my opinion, there's something else going on here which makes her so popular. And it's a whole host of things. It's, globalized capitalism, it's social media, it's the image she presents herself, which a lot of people can project themselves onto, especially in regards to politics, and especially with her very corporatized brand of liberal feminism. Now, I know a lot of you might react to me saying that, being like, oh, it's a man saying bad things about liberal feminism, and a lot of you might not have seen my videos before. So to make it clear, I'm a communist, I'm a feminist. Liberal feminism, in my opinion, isn't the solution to anything, because liberal feminism basically wants women represented better in the patriarchal system. So it's like more women cops, more women CIA agents, more women CEOs. Like, that is the goal of liberal feminism. Where leftist feminism is about destroying patriarchy which assigns gender roles to us all, including men, and keeps us oppressed by these gender roles. And liberal feminists like to talk about patriarchy, but I don't really think they know what it means. They think it means, oh, men dominate the system, we must change that and be more equal in the system. It's not about that. It's about fundamentally, like, destroying the system. Like, it's the same with racism. Kamala Harris being the vice president doesn't really say much about either feminism or anti-racism. And she's not challenging either of that. And she's actually assimilated into those power structures of racism and of patriarchy to get into a position of power. You only have to look at her like whole career, right? She's a good example of both of these things not being solved or challenged just by women or minority groups ascending to positions of power in a racist patriarchal place. So Taylor Swift fits nicely into that, in that her political persona is basically nothing but the bare bones Democrat liberal feminism. And who inspired her liberal feminism? Lena Dunham. But I think that really helps with her branding and helps make her popular, because she is uncontroversial enough that people won't be turned off by her politics. But also, if you are maybe more left-leaning, Gen Z or whatever, you think she maybe has the same politics of you, because I think a good degree of Taylor Swift's popularity is personal projection onto her that she is like you, basically. So yeah, all of that coming up for you today. It's going to be a very long video. I think the conversation between me and my girlfriend is like 40 minutes, so I will edit that down, but I'm going to leave most of it in there. And this video I don't think is going to do very well. Not something like I normally talk about. But yeah, support me on Patreon, check out my Instagram. I've also made a new Instagram just for my travel videos and pictures that I never really posted. And maybe some gaming stuff as well, so go check out both of them. And yeah, let's get more into the video. So just about me personally, in terms of music taste. I don't think Taylor Swift is a bad singer, like I said. I don't think she's a bad artist. I think she has decent enough songs. I just don't like them, personally. Like, I like the Bon Iver ones because I like Justin Vernon. That's pretty much it. And I think she's a nice compliment to him. But with her own music, it's fine. Like, if you put it on for me right now while I was editing, well, I probably would turn it off because I want something else on, but it's not like offensive to me, right? I think for me personally, and if you guys have OCD, let me know if this is something you can relate to. I have very specific tastes, and I like the music of like all my favorite bands. Like, I know like every song, and I pretty much like every song. So my favorite bands like Arcade Fire, Kings of Leon, the XX, and by extension Jamie XX and Romy, and then Chromatics. There's loads of Radiohead, Arctic Monkeys. There's loads of bands I can think of that I really like. In terms of like artists, personally, like Marvin Gaye is probably my favorite singular artist. And what a lot of these things have in common is that I associate them with either core memories or something I like. Like Chromatics obviously have songs in Drive, but they have a few songs from Mr. Robot. I really love both of those things. My first exposure to Bon Iver was the film Place Beyond the Pines in 2013, and then I already had that memory and I associated it with that, and I go down the rabbit hole. More recently, things like Cyberpunk 2077 have got me into a few different genres. Like, I'm even listening to Idris Elba and liking it because I associate it with Cyberpunk. There's this Russian DJ called Nina Kravitz, which I've also been getting into recently, and these aren't traditionally things I like. So if Taylor Swift shows up in the next Cyberpunk game or a TV show I really like, then maybe I'll start liking her as well. Like, I can't rule it out. But for the time being, in the way I consume music, I have no attachment to her at all. What basically inspired this video is she's just everywhere. Like, everything I learn about her is against my will. Like, I really don't care about anything she does or says, but I know about it. And I know about it because she has insane fans and the media are obsessed with her. And let's talk about this first, because I don't want to ignore this, about the conservative hysteria around Taylor Swift, which I find so funny. But for some context, for a long time, because Taylor Swift was so bland and her politics was so like hidden, because she didn't really talk about them, a lot of conservatives thought she was conservative, because I think she came from a conservative background, so conservatives liked her more. But then it came out she was telling people to vote for certain Democrats. She told people eventually to vote for Joe Biden in the 2020 election. She's told people to just vote in general. Of course, she's come out as someone who's like, fairly liberal. And because of her popularity and because of her endorsing Joe Biden last time, and she's gotten like so much more popular since then, conservatives are really scared that she is going to sway the vote for Joe Biden. I think this fear of conservatives is really over the top. But also, it'd be great for Joe Biden if Taylor Swift starts going around campaigning for him. Personally, I can't really see that happening because of what he's been doing to Palestine. But I can see her maybe coming in with like a last minute endorsement like in October or something, right? But conservatives have been freaking out about it. They think she's a psy-op to get Joe Biden re-elected. They think she's trying to basically like shift the culture in like a more, liberal direction. And yeah, like, I can see that these conspiracy theories are absolutely like ridiculous, and nearly all of it is motivated by them just hating her because she's a woman. But I think why they're scared of her, if any of them are actually scared of her influence, is because she is, in my opinion, a pretty bland person for politics, a pretty bland person in general in terms of personality. So they're afraid that general people who like her, like even conservatives, will be influenced by her and voting for Joe Biden. But again, I don't know how much influence she really has in terms of that stuff. I will admit her fans are very obsessive, but also danger, I guess, is more that she'll make people vote rather than vote specifically for Biden, because a lot of her fan base are younger who would be more inclined to vote for Biden anyway. So yeah, I don't really know about that one too much. And honestly, I don't really care to spend too much time on this video talking about that because yeah, it's just unhinged. Like, I probably played you some clips of it. It's just like pretty much incoherent conspiracy theories about her. And it's funny because Taylor Swift to me is a lot of what's wrong with liberal feminism and capitalism. Like, I'm a leftist and I don't like her for leftist reasons, including obviously like her use of her private jet or the sweatshops that make her merch in places like Honduras. Like, she's nearly a billionaire at this point, and apparently she's worth $1.3 billion. I don't know what the criteria for actually being a billionaire is, but yeah, she is worth $1 billion. So you only achieve that through, in certain ways, gross exploitation or benefiting of a system that is fundamentally immoral, and she clearly doesn't have much of a problem with that. Now, I want to talk about her image a bit more, and again, if you want to push back against me, I'd suggest maybe waiting until you've watched the whole video, because Hollie does that and pushes back against some of these points I'm raising. So I'm happy people more are seeing through this Taylor Swift image, because at the end of the day, Taylor Swift's image is carefully curated to be as profitable as possible. And in that she's like Marvel movies, she appeals to everyone. And there's nothing wrong with liking Marvel movies or Taylor Swift beyond like them like not being good art, in my opinion. But at the same time, it's designed for you to like it. And I think that's a trend you see across movies and you see across the music industry as well. Like, I'm not someone who's going to rave at you saying that music was better back when, but I do think chart music has historically been a lot better than it is today. Like, since the late 2000s, 2010s, where everything just sounds exactly the same, in my opinion, and everything is so cookie cutter. Same with the top 10 grossing films every year compared to like the 1980s. Like we don't live in a world anymore where something like Platoon is going to become like one of the largest grossing movies of the year and win like most of the Academy Awards. Like, that world doesn't exist anymore. And it's the same with a lot of music today, where the music of the past that was so good and did so well in the charts, it just wouldn't really fly today because it's really, really a narrow box. And I always think about this George Lucas quote where he talked about how his films and the films in America in general had to fit into this box of like commercialism. And he said, for all the faults of the Soviet system, in the Soviet Union, they could be more experimental because all they had to do was worry about the government censors, right? So don't make a film criticizing the Soviet government. But in terms of the artistic expression, there wasn't as many limits on that because it didn't have to fit into the American box office.
I do like movies. I love movies. And I know a lot of movies aren't popular. And you can say that going in. One of the reasons I retired is so I could make movies that aren't popular. Because in the world we live in the system we've created for ourselves in terms of it's a big industry, you cannot lose money. So the point is that you're forced to make a particular kind of movie. And I used to say this all the time when people, back when Russia was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And they'd say, oh, but aren't you so glad that you're in America? I said, well, I know a lot of Russian filmmakers. They have a lot more freedom than I have. All they have to do is be careful about criticizing the government. Otherwise, they can do anything they want.
And so what do you have to do?
You have to adhere to a very narrow line of commercialism. And there's only look, when I started in the 70s, it was like this. I could say Russia was like this, but we were like this. You could do a certain kind of movie. And I flaunted that system. I mean, THX, my first film, is definitely not an American film, and I shoved it in sideways. Francis helped me trick the studio.
Yeah, right.
They would have never let me make that movie if they knew what I was doing.
And I think that statement has got even worse for music and film and pretty much everything these days, in that there's a very narrow view of commercialism and you are trying to capitalize on that, and Taylor Swift fits nicely into that. She's uncontroversial. Her music, in my opinion, isn't doing anything like revolutionary. In my opinion, there's nothing to her that really warrants this hype beyond it appealing to so many people, kind of by design. And you can disagree with that, but I think like the globalization as well, it's just like everything is now fitting into this small box. And I talk about this with Hollie a bit. I'm calling it cultural homogenization. I don't know if this is a term. If I made it up, I'm the smartest person ever, but I feel like everything now is the same. Everyone likes Taylor Swift. Everyone likes Marvel. Everyone plays Call of Duty and Fortnite. Everyone eats McDonald's. Everyone drinks Coca-Cola, right? I know these are stereotypes and some of them are older, but it's so popular now. It feels like all of culture is just becoming one. And even when I went traveling to like East Asia and Southeast Asia, it's just so amazing now how similar a lot of that feels now to Western countries, in that the music you'll hear, the stuff you'll see there, what movies are popular, it's just all the same. It's all the same. And that's just because of globalized capitalism at the end of the day. They found a formula that is very, very successful. And Taylor Swift has cracked this formula. And part of it is an image thing. And I've been reading some articles today, especially that Time profile, which was just like, a massive puff piece. But Hannah Williams wrote this really good article, and I'm going to read some of it to you. It's called Taylor Swift's Hollow Empowerment Narrative. The singer's faux feminist branding is so convincing, journalists are doing her PR for her. There is a deeply telling moment in Swift's Time profile. It arrives after the writer has spent paragraphs on Swift's decade-and-a-half-long upward trajectory, with Swift emphasizing a public falling out with Kim Kardashian and Kanye West as the lowest moment in her career. Quote from the article, "Here Swift has told me a story about redemption, about rising and falling only to rise again, a hero's journey. I do not say to her in our conversation that it did not always look that way from the outside. She looked like a superstar who was mining her personal experience as successfully as ever. I am tempted to say this, but then I think, who am I to challenge it if that's how she felt? The point is, she felt cancelled. She felt as if her career had been taken from her." And then Hannah saying, "The answer to this, of course, is that you are the journalist. That is your job to challenge. That is not about what your subject feels or claims to feel, but about the facts of the matter. That the album released after Swift claimed she was cancelled reached #1 on the Billboard chart, was certified triple platinum, and was the best-selling album of 2017 in the US. Instead, the interviewer tells us that Swift's feelings are not only legitimate but morally correct. The artist, they write, gives people, many of them women, who have been conditioned to accept dismissal, gaslighting, and mistreatment from a society that treats their emotions as inconsequential, permission to believe that their interior lives matter. That for your heart to break, whether it's from being kicked off a tour, or by a memory of a scarf still sitting in a drawer somewhere, or because someone else controls your life's work, is a valid wound. And no, you're not crazy for being upset about it, or wanting your story to be told." Hannah going on to say, to put it more concisely, Swift is empowering. That gargoyle of a word that squats grotesque and twisted and mocking on the ramparts of modern liberal feminism. This type of coverage of Swift's career is not content with reaffirming that the global megastar is just like us. It also wants us to be thankful for her goodness. It doesn't want us to see that being mistreated by society in a way that many women are, particularly those who are poor, who barely scrape by working 12-hour shifts in minimum wage service jobs, who have no money and no power and no control, is not the same as being uninvited for opening a tour for Kenny Chesney because the event is sponsored by a beer company and you are under the legal drinking age. A great profile of Taylor Swift would locate the crack where the two contradictory Swifts meet. The tear-stained every girl weeping in the mall car park, and the star whose private jet topped a list of celebrity-owned planes' CO2 emissions in 2022, to prize apart these competing personas and reveal the human being that exists between the two. And what that article by the New Statesman that Hannah wrote is getting at is basically that the music press push this narrative for Taylor Swift because they want access, but also they realise, because of capitalism, it's more profitable to be pro-Taylor Swift than be anti-Taylor Swift or be perceived as anti-Taylor Swift. Like, carrying this narrative for her, doing her PR for her from a journalistic outlet is actually good for the outlet. And like they're saying, Taylor Swift's problems are not our problems. Someone who is nearly a billionaire with a private jet does not share the same problems as other women in the country. That's why liberal feminism is often something that rich white liberal feminists push all the time. We saw recently with Hillary Clinton trying to jump on, the Barbie being snubbed for the Oscars. And that basically sums it up. Hillary Clinton, that's overseen like a terrible patriarchal war machine in the United States doing terrible things to other country, supporting Israel right now, by the way. So I guess Palestinian women don't matter, but that is liberal white feminism. It's all about centering yourself in the system and how you rise through the system and find success in the system, but you don't really challenge that system, because white liberal feminism does not challenge the system. Why do you think all the corporations love the aesthetics of it and love pushing it? It's because they also know it's great for branding, it's great for tricking people. It doesn't do much. And Taylor Swift, the Barbie movie, they embody this. Now, to prove this point a bit more, where does Taylor Swift's feminism come from? So an article in Time in 2014, Taylor Swift finally explains why she's a feminist and how Lena Dunham helped. Taylor Swift's stance on feminism has been hotly discussed since early in her career. Her lyrics and persona have been scrupulously analysed for evidence of a feminist vein. When asked in a 2012 interview with the Daily Beast whether she was a feminist, Swift answered, "I don't really think about things as guys versus girls. I never have. I was raised by parents who brought me up to think if you work as hard as the guys, you can go far in life." Well, the debate over whether one of our era's most renowned pop stars identifies as a feminist appears to be finally put to rest. As a teenager, I didn't understand that saying you're a feminist is just saying that you hope women and men will have equal rights and equal opportunities. Swift said in an interview with The Guardian, "What it seemed to me, the way it was phrased in culture, society, is that you hate men. And now I think a lot of girls have had a feminist awakening because they understand what the word means. For so long, it's been made to seem like something where you'd pick it against the opposite sex, whereas it's not about that at all. In fact, it's Swift's friendship with Lena Dunham that appears to have swayed her view. According to The Guardian, Dunham and Swift became friends when the creator of Girls sent the pop singer a direct message on Twitter that said, "Can we be friends, please?" Things pretty much went naturally on from there. Becoming friends with Lena without her preaching to me, but just seeing why she believes what she believes, why she says what she says, why she stands for what she stands for, has made me realise that I've been taking a feminist stance without actually saying so. So what Taylor Swift was essentially convinced of is that she was always a liberal feminist, and liberal feminists want equality for like everyone, and she'd thought about, the stereotype of what a feminist is that they all hate men, which often comes from leftist feminists saying they want to dismantle patriarchy, and a lot of men saying, well, patriarchy is naturally a good thing, look how much success it's brought us, therefore if you attack that, you hate men. You hate men. And obviously, like, Lena Dunham has like a load of her own problems, but you're just getting a sense of like Taylor Swift's view on feminism and why it's so easy to project onto her if you do have feminist politics, thinking she is on your side as well, where most people realize rich people aren't on our side, no matter what they really think. And a lot of this feminism is like more self-centered in that these people think they're really doing something in terms of like the liberal feminist message they're putting out there is really something that's challenging like societal norms or challenging patriarchy. And, white-centered liberal feminism is pretty much just about identity politics and like vague notions of equality, which often are more women CEOs, more female billionaires. Like I've seen people celebrating like Taylor Swift is a female young billionaire. Like, isn't that great? Like, no, that's really not what it's about. But, when we're talking about just general feminism and equality, in my opinion, it's about destroying patriarchy, which is like women must do this, men must do this, men must act like this, women must act like that. And that's the way you fundamentally like kind of get rid of all the problems that gender brings. But these people aren't going to save us in that regard. And I don't think they're going to add much to the conversation, because liberal identity politics, like with Taylor Swift, is so open to be hijacked by commercialism. And that's how Taylor Swift's brand of corporate liberal feminism and how bland it is just great for her. It's not a bad thing. If she was actually like a leftist feminist, that's not good. If she starts saying stuff from a leftist feminist point of view, that is not good for her brand. Saying stuff from a liberal point of view is good. Like all of corporate America would agree with what Taylor Swift is saying. That is just how they market themselves these days, right? That's how they market themselves to a more progressive up-and-coming generation. And if you're maybe not politically engaged and not as cynical as the rest of us, then yeah, you might think that's good enough. But it's not. Like I said, more female cops is not solving issues of equality because it's still upholding patriarchy at the end of the day. Now, one thing I haven't spoke about as much is Taylor Swift's fans, known as the Swifties. And obviously, Taylor Swift has a load of fans, but maybe a lot of them aren't as obsessive with her as the personality. So I was pleasantly surprised as I took a deep dive into his fandom that they, you know, they aren't all just people who will defend her no matter what. Of course you have that element. Like, you're always going to have that element. And how much that is the majority, I don't honestly know. And obviously recently there's been the story about Taylor Swift's private jet usage. So yeah, Taylor Swift taking like private jets just to watch her boyfriend play football, like, is obviously a bad thing, right? And obviously, you know, a lot of her fans are younger, so they'll be more like, you know, pro climate change legislation. And thankfully, when I went looking on the Taylor Swift subreddit, a lot of people were just calling her out. Now, I don't know how good the Taylor Swift subreddit is a representation of her fans, like are most of her fans on TikTok, but this subreddit does seem pretty good. Like, even a year ago, you had a lot of people calling her out for this, and then on this story specifically, you have the top upvoted comment saying, "I'm really disappointed. It's such a cruel move. It's public info that's already out there. There's not much she can do, but threatening a college kid over this is cruel. You know, I'm glad this sub is rightfully criticizing her for this. I can understand the whole safety thing, but as many have pointed out, it's public information. I'm sorry, I just don't like when billionaires think they can bully everyone into submission with their money." So yeah, the subreddit is like a good indicator of this as well. And then I found a massive Taylor Swift fan who is a YouTuber called Swiftologist, and they made a really good video just talking about, you know, Taylor Swift being a billionaire and exploitative. And it was just really interesting to watch a video by someone who is like a massive Taylor Swift fan, but is also like really, really critical of her wealth, of this private jet stuff.
Let's take a second to think about why she loves her fans. I am a direct recipient of the strongest part of a parasocial relationship with Taylor Swift. She does love her fans. Like, she wouldn't do this fan engagement and all of this stuff if she didn't genuinely care about the people that listen to her music, but that's not all that it is. Presenting it as just she loves her fans is a dishonest representation of why she loves her fans. She encourages the parasocial relationship because it helps her to accomplish all of the things that we just talked about. It helps her sell more stuff. That is just the fact of the matter. You cannot talk about Taylor Swift, her artistry, her musicianship, without also talking about the consumerist culture that goes along with supporting her. And if you want to engage in it, that's fine. But pretending as though that she is literally the Malala of the pop industry is crazy to me.
So I was pleasantly surprised. Obviously, you have the other side of the fandom, which is bizarre to me. It's like going beyond the like Beatlemania back in the day. That's what it feels like. And you have people going to actual NFL games just because Taylor Swift's boyfriend is a football player. And I was reading articles today which actually quoted people going to these games because they hope they can see her. Like, this level of fandom is just so obsessive. And I think it goes beyond some of the stuff back in the day. Like, you know, the Beatles, you see those videos of those girls like fainting and stuff when they see them, and you're like, that is so crazy. Same with like Elvis, and then, you know, Michael Jackson. Some of you probably don't remember because you're too young, but his fan base was like insane. Everyone remembers where they were when Michael Jackson died. He was just that famous. And it feels like Taylor Swift is reaching like a new level of it. But like I said, in my opinion, I don't get it. I don't get it. With the people I've mentioned before, like Elvis, the Beatles, Michael Jackson, Madonna, Beyonce, like all these really famous people who had these like massive cult followings, I can understand the cultural significance, even if I don't like these people as much. Like Michael Jackson, of course, like insane, but also like crazy good dancer, super unique singer, had like so many like all-time bangers, right? Even though, you know, massive creep and stuff. And with Taylor Swift, I don't think she's a great dancer anyway, but I just don't get how she is unique in the culture. I don't get what the kind of, I wouldn't call it a gimmick, but what is there to Taylor Swift that should make her this popular? And like I said, I don't believe it's based on the talent or the music. I just think she's that popular because she's the perfect commercial product, just like a Marvel movie, because Marvel movies are good, but they don't say anything. And their political themes are all about upholding the US dominated status quo, right? It's uncontroversial unless you live in like China or something, right? Most countries love it. And I think Taylor Swift is the same as that, in that her liberal feminism is super uncontroversial. Even if she plays in countries that have terrible women's rights, they probably don't care because she doesn't threaten anything. So therefore, it's just like the box I was talking about, the box George Lucas was talking about, the commercial box. And she fills that up perfectly, and it makes her a perfect capitalist product. And maybe I don't get this part of it, inspires hysterical fan bases. And maybe in the comments, someone can speak more to the social media aspect of that. So yeah, that is my take on Taylor Swift. Now, a lot of you might be commenting, saying about how wrong I am, all of that stuff. So now I'm going to play for you. Me and Hollie, my girlfriend, who is a music journalist, has reviewed Taylor Swift's work and has reviewed it positively. And we're going to talk about all of this. Hollie and me agree on a lot of stuff, but it is a bit of a debate about this stuff and just a good conversation. So I hope you'll stick around for this. So I'm filming this before everything you've already seen. And I've just grabbed my girlfriend Hollie before she's about to go to bed. It's 10:15 and I'm actually going to film the rest of it probably way later. So why I wanted to get Hollie in is Hollie is a music journalist who's actually reviewed Taylor Swift. And I wanted to get like a woman's perspective of why so many people like her, especially women. Like, I think that's fair to say that's most of her fan base, women between, let's say, 13 and 35, maybe. I just have a bunch of questions. And why I wanted to do this is because I know in my actual video, I'm going to get people accusing me of being a hater, which I am, not specifically of Taylor Swift's music or her talent or whatever, just as like consumerist music and like capitalism and art and stuff like that. So Hollie's here to enlighten me, argue against my points, and I don't think I didn't bring on Hollie to agree with everything I said, by the way. So that's why she's here.
I'm here to stop you getting cancelled for being raging misogynist.
Yeah. So yeah, Hollie, you've actually reviewed Taylor Swift's album. So my first question is, why is Taylor Swift so popular, and why do you like her music? And I know like you're not like a huge super fan, but you do like the music.
Yeah.
So explain to me why, as someone who only likes her collabs with Justin Vernon.
I'm not a Swiftie, and I say that because I feel like being a Swiftie
The association with everything.
I feel like it's a way of life, and like it's like assuming that title means that like everything about every single one of her songs. Like every single lyric, like every single album. I'm just like, I would say I'm a casual listener who likes her a lot. I listen to Taylor Swift most days, and there's a few Taylor Swift songs that I will have on like rotation every single day. So I remember getting into Taylor Swift around 2012 when she released Red. Like I remember listening to like Love Story and like some of her older stuff, but I really got into Taylor Swift with that album, and I remember having the CD. And I've always listened to like every album that she's released, but like I said, I wouldn't say I've been a Swiftie or whatever.
Yeah.
More recently, I've kind of like gone on a bit more of a Swiftie journey, because I've been like, okay, I feel like I've maybe not given some things the attention that it's deserved, or like I need to go back and re-listen to stuff. So with like Folklore and Evermore and Midnights, I've listened to those albums a lot, and like especially with Midnights, like there's a lot of songs on rotation on that. And then 1989 Taylor's version is the one I reviewed, so I've been listening to like all those songs again recently. And I don't think there's any kind of like secret reason as to why like she's so popular, like, or something that we're all missing. Like, I think at the like, to just like boil it down to what it is and like strip away all of like there's obviously like the NFL stuff at the moment, and just like general social media hysteria about her, whatever. I do think she is an excellent singer, songwriter, performer. She's really charismatic. And when you
I don't get that, the charismatic thing, but
okay, I think she's charismatic if you're a fan of her. Like, as
I think it's a bit like a cult in terms of you're reading way too much into her personality that we're just going to get onto.
No, so
I feel like there's a massive degree of projection onto her because she is this blank canvas for.
Okay, this is my time.
Which I want to get on to it.
No, so I watched her concert film. Okay.
Where Taylor Lautner started doing backflips, he was so excited about it. Literally, like he was watching around the screen and he got up to the front and started doing backflips.
Because he did backflips.
No,
on stage that's how
it works.
So
he just started doing backflips. No, he just got so excited.
No, okay. So the thing is, I don't want to compare two pop stars to one another, but like Beyonce, Taylor Swift, they both had like these massive years, massive tours, massive concert films.
Yeah.
If I want to talk about like the way that each of those artists makes me feel, like Beyonce, for me, I saw the Renaissance tour live and I saw the concert film in the cinema. That's like a full-bodied, hysterical, like just intense experience where like I'm just like, that album, that performance, like that tour was just a masterpiece.
So you can relate to the hysteria of music fans, like the
yeah.
Okay.
And obviously, I've grown up listening to music, and I know how it feels to be like a crazy fan of someone. I never got that. I never had that with Taylor Swift. But you know, watching the Eras tour, which in its own right is really impressive and enjoyable to watch. As a music fan, like I don't get that same emotional response to Taylor Swift. But I'm obviously here to try and be the voice of the Swifties to say what the appeal is.
So for me, I find Taylor Swift really bizarre because you mentioned Beyonce, who obviously it's not totally for me the music and stuff, but I can appreciate someone who's like multi-talented in terms of great songs, dancing, great voice, right? Taylor and some sort of personality expressed through that. I don't think Taylor Swift has much of a personality from her music because to me, someone who's like a casual listener, a lot of it sounds very, very similar. And you talk about like the Eras tour, which is you explained to me as like, you know, the different eras of her music, which I get. She very much reminds me of Ed Sheeran, like the female Ed Sheeran, in that, yeah, if you sit down and listen to it, you can recognize how it's different. I'm not going to say Ed Sheeran in 2011 is the same as him now, but there's a lot there that is very similar. But the thing is, Ed Sheeran doesn't have an absolutely hysterical fan base. He has like he's super popular. But what I don't get about Taylor Swift is, you know, we talked about this earlier. So you have Elvis Presley, dancing, great singer, cultural icon. Michael Jackson, just absolutely insane for the same reasons. And then maybe Beyonce, Madonna, if we're talking about like individual artists. And then for bands, you have the Beatles or like the Rolling Stones or whatever. And I can understand that hysteria more than the Taylor Swift one because there's multiple things I want to talk about because obviously the consumerist angle of this is a product. I think there's like a Black Mirror episode about it with Miley Cyrus, like about just musicians boiled down to like a capitalist product. And with Taylor Swift and a couple other artists, I find her the best example of this because I don't find her particularly interesting. I don't understand where this cult mentality comes from because unlike the other four I mentioned, like any of them, like Madonna did something interesting, just even like with the sexuality and stuff. It's like different, isn't it? And it might be a bit controversial. Beyonce, like, obviously has her own things. Elvis, super controversial. Michael Jackson, controversial in very bad ways. But the dancing was like, no one had ever seen dancing like that.
Yeah.
And you know, your favorite film is Breaking, is it?
Yeah.
And you know, you say he worked with Michael Jackson, both of them?
No, so there's a sort of like a law about like if he taught him the moonwalk. Yeah.
And Taylor Swift, as a woman, this is what I want to ask you. Taylor Swift to me seems like someone you can project yourself onto. And we all have this like stupid main character thing with social media, and it's a certain generation, TikTok generation, that absolutely love her. And I guess maybe millennials can fit into that as well. And to me, it feels like a lot of women, if we're going to talk about women with you, project a lot of stuff on Taylor Swift as an icon of their own views, even though she has really not said anything through her music and through her politics beyond very, very bog standard white liberal feminism. And I feel like for white women consuming this, it's very much like, oh my God, that's me. Because I can just project anything on her because what has she said that goes against it? Where someone like Madonna, you can't be like, if you know, you're around and Madonna was like in her 20s, you can't be like, oh my God, I'm Madonna. Because that's just like a certain person, right? The same way I couldn't be like, oh my God, I'm Elvis Presley. Like that is me. So for you personally, I just want to know what you think about me saying that. Because I know some people have inferred that I might be a misogynist for only liking Taylor Swift songs with Justin Vernon. But also, like, I know that might be like a spicy take for people to hear, because here is like a woman who is one of the most successful artists of all time. But in my opinion, I just don't feel like that is earned at all. And I feel like there's other things going on in society which make her the most popular artist. And if you're talking about sheer numbers, it might be the most popular artist of all time in terms of actual like quantifiable fan base and stuff. So I want to know what you think about like everything I just said. I'm focusing on the female side specifically, I think.
Yeah, in terms of like projecting onto her, I don't know if what you're saying is really as big a part of the appeal as you think it is.
I think it's a subconscious thing.
Okay, but so the
fan base is very cult-like, in my opinion.
Yeah, yes. The interesting thing is that a lot of her newer fans, like they'll kind of tease her for being so millennial and stuff. So she's got like a new fan base of like Gen Z fans. I don't like. Yes, Gen Z are more political, but I don't think that they're looking at her saying like, "God, she's the feminist icon that like I've always wanted." I think they're just like, "Oh, like Taylor Swift speaks out about like." I don't want to call it women's rights, but like she speaks out about things that are important to women. So
Like,
okay,
can I
so
have some
she has
examples,
she has
maybe?
a song called "The Man," and it's like oh what's the lyric? Thinking about how much faster I'd get here if I was a man.
So it very much is like neoliberal, white
very
liberal
very
feminism.
like base level like feminism. Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing like too deep or anything. So people, when Barbie didn't get the Oscar nominations, people were like quoting that lyric next to it, and everyone was like, "Yeah, but they lost out the nominations to other women."
Yeah.
So anyway,
But
so,
that's what I'm talking about. It's like this with Barbie. It's like a small tangent. It's like very much like main character syndrome of, oh my god, white liberal feminism, and this is why Barbie didn't win, because men
Yeah.
hate women. And
Yeah.
it's like, you know, there's more. I mean, on a very surface level, that is right. I don't think that is, but it's also super safe, especially now. Like, there is nothing Taylor Swift says in that which would go against any corporate PR firm
No,
or
okay, so
corporation's
to return-
view on feminism.
to return to
basically.
the point that I was making about her lyrics being important to women, people like male journalists will always catch on to the fact of like, oh, Taylor Swift shares everything about her boyfriends and her exes in her songs and stuff. But like, yes, you can obviously kind of like piece together like who she might be talking about and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think people really like the way she sings about heartbreak, and like before she released, which album was it? Was it Midnights? She basically said like, oh, the world moves on like a different axis if you've had heartbreak, like it's a totally different place for
Yeah.
people with heartbreak. Young girls are like going through heartbreak all the time, even if it's not like relationship heartbreak. It's like when you're that age, you're feeling things so intensely and you feel like you're being heartbroken.
So
like,
what music did you like? Because obviously Taylor Swift was around when you were that age, but what music did you like when you were that age about that? Because most music's about that.
I mean, I was different because I liked more like indie,
Paramore.
probably male. Yeah, Paramore, male-led. Yeah, okay. So like Misery Business is an interesting one. Do you know the story about that song? It's basically, people would say it's like slut shaming because it's Hayley Williams singing about like this girl who's like trying to steal her guy or whatever, and she's like wants a
Yeah,
boy
like Skater Boy.
So Hayley Williams has gone on this sort of like journey of like she stopped singing it and now she's come back around to it and
Yeah.
stuff. So like for me, being that age, it was just like big feeling, like having big feelings and trying to like channel that into something that felt like it was like having feelings on the same level
Like
as
Avril
you.
Lavigne as well.
Yes,
I just want to-
even if it wasn't what'd you say?
The Skater Boy, because we had a debate about who is in the right in
Yeah.
Skater Boy.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
obviously the
So,
boy.
and-
The boy
and-
is in the right,
and
not
this
the
is-
girl. But
So this is an interesting thing. Like, you know, I'll interview artists and a lot of them are like, oh, I'm reluctant to attribute too much meaning to my lyrics because you
Yeah.
want people to be able to like apply their own
Yeah.
meaning. So like for me, like with Taylor Swift and especially like a song like All Too Well, it's so intense and just like people say it's like her magnum opus. Basically it's like her best song, and the 10-minute version, like it's just like whatever you're feeling, you're just like, it's all coming out. And like
Yeah.
for me, that's kind of what her songs feel like. And she is an excellent songwriter, and this is a whole debate in itself because people like,
does she write all her songs?
yeah, and she works closely with Jack Antonoff. Okay, for example, Karma is like one of her biggest songs of like the last few years, and
Yeah, I remember that, you playing that a load.
do you remember
last
I was
year.
explaining it to you about like what it means? We were in the car and I was like, oh, so like when I first heard Karma, I was just like, oh, this is a catchy song. But then I like really listened to it and it's like, I keep my side of the street clean. And you wouldn't know what that means. And like Karma's my boyfriend, Karma's this, Karma's this. It's like all these good things that have happened to my life life is Karma.
Okay.
And like when that clicked for me, I was kind of like, oh my god, yeah, like I keep my side of the street.
So yeah, so it's even what I'm saying that, but you're saying it's more common, just general artist thing. You're projecting, which most people do, your own life on Taylor Swift. So she's saying,
and the
I've had
thing
all
is-
these great things because I've had, I've been good, bad stuff's happened, and now I'm getting my rewards.
Yeah, and also for me, when I listen to
so
Karma,
very much like individual.
I think about like people like what Kanye West did to her and
Yeah.
stuff, and like publicly like discoursing with like big celebrities and stuff, and she's kind of like look at what I have now, basically.
Yeah.
That's why I listen to it. And
But is it something you can't get from other music? Like that's the main thing I'm trying to get at in terms of, I'm not saying she's bad at all. I'm saying she's like the MCU of music in that she fulfills a certain need. That's why she's so popular. But I'm contrasting that with other people who are popular because they've cultivated an interesting image.
Let's compare. You were saying earlier, who is like a really big pop star at the moment?
Yeah.
So I could say Dua Lipa is probably one of the biggest pop
I couldn't
stars.
name one of her songs. I don't think I've ever heard of
But
her
this is the
music.
interesting thing, and I did see someone tweet about this. Like, she doesn't have like a crazy fan base. Like,
And also-
I don't think I've ever met someone who's been
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god, Dua Lipa, I'm her
But
biggest
also,
fan."
she came out and said something controversial politically, and she's like, "I'm smart," like all this stuff.
Yeah, she did a Rolling Stone interview
Yeah.
recently, and she basically just opened up about like talking about politics and stuff.
Yeah.
I'll get onto that quickly in a sec. But yeah, Dua Lipa's very like more surface level lyrics about love and stuff, because Dua Lipa's more straight up pop.
Yeah.
Whereas Taylor Swift is like treading this line between like, because she came from a country background,
Yeah.
like lyric based, like singer songwriter, like love songs that can also be like massive pop anthems, and you don't really have to listen to lyrics if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Also, like, I was reading on Twitter the other day people talking about how like she doesn't really have like good hooks and stuff. But if you think about like songs like Shake It Off and like Love Story isn't like hooky, but like the songs themselves are so iconic. Like they're such
Yeah.
pop songs that have just been throughout the charts like for like our whole young adult lives.
Yeah.
So I feel like part of the issue now is people are trying, literally what we're doing right now, people are trying to dissect so much, like, what is it all about, that like people aren't actually thinking about the music. And if you go through and you listen to like all of her albums and you generally like music, you're probably going to find like some songs that really hit you or really resonate with you. And for the Swifties, that's like everything that she does.
Yeah. So I guess my problem is because it comes from like people call me a hater, and hopefully I made clear on the actual video I don't hate her music. I don't think she's a bad singer. But for me, it's like the same way I don't think Chris Evans is a bad actor for being Captain America, right? It's like I don't see anything interesting about this music at all. And I feel like in the past, even chart music had something about it that was different. I was going to do this, but I forgot to do it. I was going to bring up like the top 10 from like the last like 1984, 1974, and just see like what was in the charts, right? But for me, it's like I don't know if this is like the right term. It's like cultural homogenization, where because of globalization and the internet, you're trying to make something that is so universally accepted for money. And Taylor Swift, but I wouldn't say this is necessarily intentional, but she's very much found a certain formula which is just so popular around the world. Like I said, Ed Sheeran is another one. It's a very, all Ed Sheeran songs, in my opinion, sound kind of the same. And if you don't concentrate, it just like, it's in your ear and it's out. You forget about it. Same way when I liked Taylor Swift's songs with Justin Vernon, I tried to listen to that whole album, and it just went completely over my head in terms of like, I didn't think, oh yeah, like this is really good. I was like, that's pleasant to listen to. I could stick that on right now and just like not pay attention, right? And for me personally, as a hater, but as someone who doesn't even really like Madonna or Beyonce's music, I respect that. But then someone who my favorite like singular artists are probably like Marvin Gaye and stuff. And I was showing you his music the other day in terms of like showing you how much it changed from the 60s to the 80s. But it's all so interesting. And then it's like his later stuff is so political while being really good. And for me personally, I'm not asking Taylor Swift to be really political or anything. But because she has such like, she's like a symbol for people. But what I think that symbol is, where Marvin Gaye might be like political activist or political songwriter, Taylor Swift's symbol to me is commercialism and white liberal feminism. But it's not because she sings about white liberal feminism so much. Like you're talking about like the Karma and the other song, which is very much centered on like oneself, like very much like a neoliberal understanding of white feminism, of my personal like struggle, which is fine for women to talk about, of course, but it's not reflecting a larger issue. She's not saying, oh, patriarchy is bad, we must destroy it, and then we'll all be free. It's not like a very like scathing critique. So then to me, it's like the only reason she has any political relevance is, because people project onto her, because all she's really said is, oh, vote for Joe Biden like 4 years ago. No, she's politically relevant because she says that, right? And it's a very safe thing to say, vote for Joe Biden against Donald Trump. And then you have this small box, and then people with the white liberal feminism, they project onto her. She is like an icon, like, oh my God,
I kind of think that you're giving her a little bit too much credit, because the people who are fans of her aren't like, oh my God, she's my feminist icon. I think you're just thinking of like tweets that you see where people be like the thing I mentioned about like Barbie and stuff.
Yeah.
and that would just be someone being like, oh, like, and she, like, Taylor Swift is so great, and she'll make like a political statement, or and
Okay.
she's a feminist.
But-
I don't think people love her as much as they do because she's some like amazing feminist.
So the reason it's probably in the forefront of my mind is some of those tweets about the private plane thing
yeah,
by like maybe like liberals and her fans are insane, because they're taking like the language of, oh, women's privacy and danger to women, and applying it to like one of the richest musicians who is using a private plane to fly around. They're like, oh my god, you shouldn't track this because women. And it's like weaponizing kind of like, or I wouldn't even say weaponizing what she says, because like you're saying, she doesn't really say like loads of stuff about being a woman, but at the same time it's kind of like you're using it as defense, because it's like, oh, Taylor Swift, she's already spoke about the struggles of being a woman, and now you want to track a private jet? Like, how dare you? And it's like a lot of Democrats use this and liberals use this. They weaponize the stuff back at you to be like, you cannot criticize someone. And it's like even where some people in this video, I'm sure, will be calling me a misogynist, because I'm trying to say like about like a woman that you can very much project a certain politics on her, and it's very much something, you know, from a certain group of women, liberal women, I don't know what age, but, you know, you could be older, could be younger, to make her like this image of liberal feminism, when like you even saying like there's nothing about her which is culturally relevant in terms of feminism. Like you're not going to get any feminist anything from Taylor Swift. And something, you know, I don't know too much about Madonna in terms of what she said, but that's something like with Beyonce and Madonna, it doesn't have to be said, because it comes through in like the art itself about like female empowerment and stuff, right? They don't have to come out and say women rock, like all this stuff. I'm not saying Taylor Swift does that, but I'm saying like Taylor Swift has an unearned reputation in many ways, in my opinion, for being like, you know, the success is not based on merit, in my opinion. I think she's perfectly fine. And I'm just saying like her cultural relevance is also massively overblown, in my opinion, as well, because of people's projection based on like certain things. It's like a cult. Like, I've seen people do this, like, oh my god, she's done this, link. It's like that meme with from It's Always Sunny. It's like, so she must think this, because like I'm linking it all together. So that's what I guess my problem with her fan base is, just like they've elevated her in some ways to a position that I'm not even saying she's asked for this, because she definitely hasn't. It's like it's a runaway thing with her fans. It's not like she can express herself however she wants, but I'm saying because of her fan base, it makes her into something else entirely, which I don't think is really relevant to anything she's actually said or music she's put out, I guess.
Yeah, and I can agree with you to an extent, but I do feel like there has been some kind of Gen Z turning point, and this is just purely like hypothetical. Like I don't have any, like this is all like empirical
I got a tiny bit of evidence, but carry on.
Okay, so I was telling you this anecdote earlier today, that one of my younger cousins, who I think she must be like 20 now, pre-pandemic, I don't know when we're talking, maybe 1989 era, as in the album 1989 to 2014. Was it 2014? I think so. Yeah. So this cousin lived in Ireland and said Taylor Swift came to perform in Ireland and they couldn't get rid of the tickets. So I saw this on Twitter before my cousin told me.
Because that's what we're talking about. I was like, I don't understand where this popularity is suddenly come from.
I saw this being spoken about anecdotally on Twitter, but people being like, "Lol, remember when Taylor Swift came to Ireland?" And like everyone was being given tickets basically. So my cousin said her whole football team got invited and everyone was allowed to bring a friend. Taylor Swift. Yeah. Can you imagine? And like now it's like they're gold dust. Like I had like myself and like 5 friends all pre-registered. None of us got like, because you know it's all like the fan pre-sale stuff now. Yeah. Like none of us even got a chance to get tickets. So the point I was saying to you today was I do feel like it's some kind of social media turning point. Maybe TikTok has played a part. Like I feel like I have
pandemic plus TikTok, which is also linked to the pandemic as well.
I have felt this myself. Like, should I be a Swiftie? I like Taylor Swift, but why am I not getting it on that level? Like, have I not given the music like the time and the thought that
I
it
would say
deserves?
because like this is no offense to people like Taylor Swift. I would say it's because you're too smart and you're not a kid anymore. No. Because what I mean by that is that you can think critically about like all the things we're talking about in terms of the music, right? So you're not going to become like some super obsessive super fan because you realize like as much as I like this music, I don't buy into this whole manufactured image which is designed to sell records.
I wouldn't be a fan like that of anyone. Like I was saying, I was a massive.
But you are like a massive Beyonce fan.
But yeah, massive
That's what I
Beyonce
mean.
fan, and like for that tour, like you helped me get tickets to that
Yeah.
tour. I was like, I have to go. Like I'm gonna be distraught if I don't go.
Yeah.
That was the closest I felt to like that crazy fan hysteria in a long time. But draw the line at being online defending Beyonce. The thing is, I wouldn't really defend anyone in that way
Yeah.
because, okay, I don't know if we were going to get onto this, but there's a good article. I think it's the New Statesman.
I've screenshotted 2 of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
about why Taylor Swift is like so much of her like
I'll
appeal
probably
is like
read some of it in the video,
is like commercial and everything, and like I didn't agree with all of it, but like I did think it raised a lot of really good arguments, and I feel like it kind of ties into the death of like culture criticism because in the journalism industry, everywhere is like folding, everyone's being made redundant. Journalists are being replaced by TikTokers and influencers.
And AI.
Yeah. And there's this like, I don't know, expectation to just be like excited about everything. And it's like,
Well, journalism increasingly becoming PR across all industries.
Yeah.
It's not just music, it's gaming,
Yeah.
politics, everything.
and it's happening obviously across like mainstream and both mainstream and more like niche publications and stuff. So that's
Because
why
you need the access, don't you?
yeah, exactly. And that's why it's sometimes fun to see someone be like a massive hater, because like even if you think they're being like
me.
gratuitous or whatever, it's interesting to read like their arguments and
Yeah.
stuff. So I do
Because
me
it makes you see something you were never even conscious
yeah.
of. That's why.
For me, the Taylor Swift moment is all part of this whole like this new phase of social media,
Yeah.
Gen Z, and the death of cultural criticism.
And it's like, and funny, what popped in my head when you said that? Arctic Monkeys.
Yeah.
That popped in my head. I'm like being gaslit that these last 2 albums are actually really good because
Do you know what?
I really
We've come around to them.
But no, I really like a couple songs. But then I'm watching the music press, not fans. I'm watching the music press being like, the Arctic Monkeys smash out of the park again. They were best yet. And it's like, no, it's like you're just fucking lying because you're fans, and you just have to like. It's kind of like music journalists are a weird group of people. Anyway, just in terms of like thinking they're better than everyone. but that's most journalists, to be honest. But yeah, I get what you're saying in terms of like it's fun to be a hater and assess these things culturally. But now it's
Can I just jump in as well?
I was just going to say,
Sorry, finish your
linking
point.
it back to, but then that's how you get often weaponized liberal identity politics of,
Yeah.
oh my God, why bring down the most successful woman artist ever, you misogynistic pig?
Yes. The thought of being like a Gen Z
That's social
teenager in this climate sounds absolutely horrible, and I do feel like it is more performative than ever, and people feel the need to be a part of that. If you're a fan of someone and you're in a fandom, like as a lot of people are when they grow up, I was definitely in fandoms,
Yeah.
but like
I'm going to talk about
extent.
this in the longer video.
You feel like you need to be like just like, you know, unquestionably like devote yourself to absolutely everything they do and say, and if you don't, you're either like being left behind, or you're not as big a fan.
Yeah.
And if you have a bad word to say about them, then people are going to dogpile on you, which is a horrible thing to have happen to you on the internet, especially when you're a young person.
And that's what I mean. I don't get TikTok, and I said to you, Taylor Swift Reddit is not actually bad, which I'm surprised by. But I don't use TikTok, so I don't know how insane people are on there.
Yeah.
But
Do you know? Sorry,
but I'm just saying on here, I just had some posts. I might read it in the video. Just loads of people in the subreddit all criticizing Taylor Swift for the jet thing, which I was surprised about, because when I see Taylor Lautner doing backflips about how excited he is, then I think everyone's never going to say that.
But of all the stuff you said about like projecting and feminism and stuff, like I obviously would prefer my pop stars to be political. So as an example, literally my favorite artist of like the last few years is Ethel Cain. She's like up and coming, but like if you know, you know, kind of thing. Yeah. She posted a 10-minute song on SoundCloud, shared it to Instagram about Palestine, and it was like really moving, and like, you know, Taylor Swift would never do that. So for me,
Taylor Swift isn't Taylor Swift if she does that.
No,
that's what
exactly.
Is,
so for me, I'm like, oh my God, I love this artist, and I love them as a person even more because of like their morals and values.
Yeah.
And I told you about, there's another band called Moona, and they will literally put on their story, don't vote for like this Republican, you know, racist or whatever. Vote for this person. Like if you're voting in LA today, go out and vote for this person.
Yeah.
And they'll post like mutual aid and stuff. And I've said to you before, like I respect that so much. Like if you want to talk about the artist as like, you know, the whole person, that is obviously gonna earn my respect, but so like if you want to talk about fandoms, whatever, that is something I'd be more inclined to like be a part of. But what you were saying about like,
because otherwise it's just super obsessing about the person, and how does that not get boring after a while?
I know.
Like, that's the thing with Taylor Swift. What is there to obsess about apart from what dress she wears and like maybe the look she gives her boyfriend? Like, I find her so ordinary. She's literally like elevated ordinary, but it's a brand thing. It's like, oh, the high school sweetheart with, it's not high school sweetheart, but you know, the whole image of her with an NFL player boyfriend.
Yeah, I know.
It's very much like college.
So, you know that Matt guy, the Instagram guy with the nails, what's his name? He always does the infographics about like politics and pop culture and stuff.
Right.
He was like, I never thought I'd see the day where a pop star dating a NFL guy is being called gay by conservatives.
Yeah, it's a weird one, but I'm just saying, like, that's what I'm saying. She's so, I don't know what she's really like, but to me, she's so boring and so ordinary. It's very easy for everyone to fit themselves into her life.
Yeah.
Like, I am her. I am her best friend. She's just like me. She has a boyfriend who plays football. That's like me. I'm 18. My boyfriend plays for the high school football team. So to wrap it all up, basically, yeah, I find it inoffensive in terms of her music. Some of it's all right. The cult fan base, I'll never understand. I mean, I understand it far less than I could have. Like, when you watch videos of the Beatles fans where, you know, all those young girls like freaking out and fainting, you're like, oh my God, how insane is that? Like, that hysteria. But then at least it's kind of like, not, you understand it because it was so different for the time. Like, the music was so different. And I know it has its influence, like the Beatles, you know, influence of people like Buddy Holly and stuff. Like, it wasn't like completely unique, but it was a new thing, like them and the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
And then Michael Jackson, like, especially when he got in, like with Thriller, it's literally like, you know, absolute superstar because it's so different. And with Elvis as well. But then with Taylor Swift, I'm like, because she's also been around for so long and not been popular. That's what's bizarre, because Michael Jackson was always popular because he was in the Jackson 5 and then went off and did his own thing, right? Elvis, you know, became popular pretty quickly as well. So it's like, to me, it's like what, you're all just ignoring her for like 15 years, like since 2000, like 2008 or 9 is the first time I saw her, and I was like, so she wasn't good then, and then in 2020 suddenly she's the best thing ever.
She has always been a massive pop star. It's just what we're seeing right now is just something unprecedented.
Yeah.
And I do think it is something to do with like the way the culture is, like all these various parts of our culture.
Cultural homogenization. I'm saying, that's my term. I don't know if this is a term, but it's a term about Marvel movies. Another example of this is everyone liking the exact same fucking thing because it's lowest common denominator, made to appeal to your brain to make you feel good and not be controversial and be universally loved. Like, everyone loves Marvel, everyone loves Taylor Swift, everyone loves McDonald's, everyone loves.
Yeah.
It's like just globalization. It just makes everyone the same fucking thing.
I do think there is something in your argument, but I do believe that I don't think she's like behind the scenes like, I can't be controversial because this little girl isn't.
But she's managed. She's managed. She's not. She's not. He's not making every choice herself.
I think she's just not controversial so that she can keep the career that she has, and it's got her this far. Just be safe. Just because the thing is, Taylor Swift does have massive financial and political sway now. Like, obviously, she could literally like sway an election, and her appearance and her going to cities will literally change the like economic outcome of like a quarter of like a city that she's gone and done like a
but that's like,
show in and
but
stuff.
that's why
So she can't talk freely. I think she's worried to talk freely because if she makes a mistake, it could be fatal.
But I'm saying Chris Nolan recently said,
and I'm not defending that by the way. I'm just saying.
Thanks Marvel for keeping the cinemas open, right?
Who said that?
Chris Nolan recently said, thanks Marvel for keeping the cinemas open. It's the same thing with Taylor Swift in terms of like, it's like, I'm not saying she's keeping the things open, but with the local economy, it's like movie theatres love Marvel movies because they do well, or they used to. And that's why like they love Taylor Swift because, like I said, she's so insanely popular. But if Marvel makes a movie about the Palestinian resistance against like an evil Israeli, like whatever, then it's just never going to do that, is it? That's just not Marvel. Marvel's not going to hire Terrence Malick to direct the movie. Yeah. And even if it hires someone like Chloe Zhao, who loves Terrence Malick, they make a certain type of movie. And I'm saying with my new favourite term that I've just made up, cultural homogenization, is just everything has to fit into a certain box of commercialism. As George Lucas said, that's why he started to hate making Star Wars and movies, because everything in America had to be a certain thing, or it's not getting made.
Yeah.
Well, that's why he said he liked the Soviet Union, because he said if you didn't criticize the government, you could do whatever you wanted with the budget, basically. They didn't really give a shit. So that's it for everything. I'm not sure how I'm going to set this up. I might cut in parts of it throughout and maybe section it, or maybe we'll just play a big long bit in the middle. Thank you, Hollie, for joining me. Thanks for delaying your bedtime. And do you want people to follow you on social media? All the freaks watching this. I mean, if you follow me, you probably seen Hollie pop up a couple of times. And yeah, last thing is Taylor Lautner insane for getting so excited by a movie with Taylor Swift in it that he did a backflip.
I need
Don't
no, please
don't
explain
explain it. Don't explain it. Don't explain it. People are watching it right now. Don't explain it.
Go and Google why he did the backflip.
Because he was so excited. So that is it for the video. That is my take on Taylor Swift. Like I said, no hate to her personally in terms of the music side. I mean, hate to her personally in terms of the labor exploitation that goes into her merch and the private jet usage. But I just find her like so fascinating in terms of just like why she is everywhere. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. And maybe people can explain to me why I don't get it. Like, what is there to her I'm missing? I see her as the female Ed Sheeran. I see her as an MCU movie. I see her as a perfect capitalist consumer product that is designed for absolute mass appeal and is uncontroversial enough that no one's going to find her image disagreeable, I guess. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.